White Sox fans, and welcome in. Happy opening day. It's Tony Marchese alongside NWI Steve. We're going to crack them and celebrate with some victory beers as the White Sox come up victorious on opening day. Steve, how you doing? Happy opening day to you, my friend.
Hey, yo, Anthony. I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Listen, one thing jumps off the bat to me immediately here. Pedro Grifol goes out there and does something that Tony La Russa wasn't able to do and hashtag set the tone on opening day. This is a big deal right here. This is getting the team ready to roll here. Maybe, just maybe, this is what's going to turn this team around because no TLR, no Jose Abreu, White Sox winning record. I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Well, Steve, I know you've been waiting all day to celebrate a White Sox victory. You wouldn't know that by reading what you wrote earlier today over at OnTapSportsNet.com in your season preview for the Chicago White Sox. Might have been the most negative thing I've read from you in quite a bit, but here we are. You're happy. It's sort of taken me by surprise that you're happy about a win. Given that you predicted this team would get 76 wins, 78. I told you just too short, but
77 more to go, baby.
Only 77 more to go. And for Sean Roberts out there, that's one of 88. But we're going to get into this game here. But before we do, be sure you're going to OnTapSportsNet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Steve, it's an honor to be here with you on opening day. As most of you who listen to the show saw that we were named opening day co-hosts. First order of business here is, what kind of honor is this to you? How are you feeling today to be selected opening day podcast co-host?
Listen, to be selected by your peers for this honor, this is something I'm going to cherish with me for a long time to come. It's not every day that you get chosen to do the post-game show on opening day. And that's an honor that I take very seriously. I'm committed to come out here and hashtag set the tone for a quality season of Sox on Tap post-game shows.
Steve, I love it. I feel the same way. I sort of gave my thoughts on this to Johnny the other day. It's an honor to be here with you. And I can't wait to do these post-game shows all season long. Happy opening day to everybody out there. First and foremost,
to all those who celebrate.
Yeah, we've got quite the crowd in here. I see Sale is here.
Yeah,
we've got some set the tones in here. LA, thanks for joining us. Michael, LA, threw another comment out there. Victory beers. I'm enjoying one. Steve's enjoying a Gatorade. He's had a long day. So first order of business in terms of breaking down opening day, Steve, how was your opening day overall leading up to today's ball game?
Well, here's how my opening day started. I woke up at a hotel in Sacramento, California at 4 a.m. for an 8:10 flight. So great start immediately right there. But was able to go to the airport before my flight. Hashtag crack 'em, bright and early. You might have saw that earlier this morning here. Listen, I think that's how you go out there and hashtag set the tone for opening day. You got to commit to this thing. You got to come ready to play. As soon as you get out of bed, you got to bring it. And that's what I feel like I did today.
Absolutely, Steve. You got on a flight and made it back here to OnTap HQ just in time. I think you rolled up right at first pitch. It was about 6:12, I think, when you entered the garage. Garage was open earlier. It was great. We got some nice weather out here. It's going to be a little stormy tomorrow. Our guy, the weather guy, was telling me some two-treat things about, the weather tomorrow.
I heard we might have some special weather reports.
There might be some special weather reports tomorrow. I see Sockside Mike has joined us. Happy opening day to you, Mike. My opening day was sort of interesting. I was downtown during the day. I got on the train. And there was a bunch of Cubes fans. I had to go into the office today, and it was sort of.
So your train car stunk like piss, is what you're saying.
It stunk like piss. There was interesting things going on. A bunch of Cubs fans, on the Metro heading up from the south side, which is weird, but I digress. Made it over to Lids though, over on Michigan Avenue. I see our guy Kirk in there. Said the hat game is strong tonight. Opening day tradition. Try and go out and get myself a new ball cap. Steve, you're rocking one from the spring training still, which is, as you know, where you set the tone. So I thanks for being here, Kirk. And the hat game is strong.
Your tradition, you get the new hat every year. For me, one of my traditions is, my birthday is obviously during spring training in the heart of hashtag set the tone season. So I typically like to go to Grandstand before the start of the season, pick myself up a nice new item, and fun little fact. So my opening day streak of attendance started in 2008 when my first nephew was born. So he was born on April 7th of 2008. And then the Sox opened up at home, beat the shit out of the Twins. Joe Creedy hit a big 7th-inning grand slam off of Pat Neshek to get the Sox a big win right there. That started my opening day streak right there. So every year, then I like to do for opening days, I like to get my nephews something for opening day every year. So there's a little bit of traditions that go along with this sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you've got opening day traditions, drop them in the comments. Reply to us over on Twitter.
A little something new for myself here. Got myself.
You've got sort of the Carlos Rodon-esque,
I heard somewhere that you got to bring that top button swag.
Yes,
I heard somewhere.
You brought the top button swag tonight. Absolutely. Steve, it's fantastic to be here and talking about a White Sox winner on opening day, something that we don't normally get to do. It feels like it's been a while since the White Sox won a game on opening day.
And it's also particularly cool because that actually snapped the Astros streak of 10 consecutive opening day victories since they migrated over to the American League. So to be able to stop that, banner raising ceremony for them and everything, nice to just go in there pissing their Cheerios a little bit.
It absolutely is. And watching this game take place, one thing that I sort of go back to is the Blackhawks opening up against the LA Kings when they had their banner raising ceremony, going in and just ruining something like that for a bunch of fans who show up and, see their team get to raise the banner. A lot of people probably weren't there, but celebrated all winter. And then it's the White Sox, a team that's sort of been little brother to the Houston Astros in recent years, go in there and spoil it for them on the back of a brilliant pitching performance by Dylan Cease. So, Steve, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about was, wow, did Dylan Cease look fucking fantastic tonight?
Dylan Cease went out there tonight, put it on the table, said, here it is, boys. You ain't going to do nothing with this. He had it all working. He was going out there, establishing control of the strike zone. What did I talk about a week ago? One thing that White Sox pitchers need to do with more regularity this season. Let's go out there, establish strike one, control the strike zone, and limit the base on balls. Dylan Cease today, 10 strikeouts, 0 walks, efficiency with his pitch offerings right there. That's what you want to see. That's him. If he can continue that, he's going to take that next step in his trajectory and really get to that upper echelon of starting pitchers in the game of baseball.
Hey, Steve, we talk about this nonstop, setting the tone. You want your ace to do just that. And I think that Dylan Cease did that tonight.
Confirmed.
ESPN game against the defending champions. Jose Abreu, obviously, there's storylines there. Just went out and shoved. So that's all you can ask for. I think final line for Dylan Cease, 13 strikeouts, 10 for Dylan Cease, 13 for White Sox pitching overall. Went 6 1/3, only gave up 2 hits. And Steve, there's a magic number here, and that's 0 when it comes to walks.
That's clutch, and that's something that I'm going to be personally monitoring all season. It was talked about on the broadcast. Dylan Cease had the most walks of any starting pitcher qualified in the league last year. Again, if he's able to trim that number down, I don't think it's going to happen overnight where he's all of a sudden just going to become a finesse pitcher that's going to magically have Greg Maddux-esque command of the strike zone. This is going to be a gradual thing here, but this is the next step in Dylan Cease's progression as a starting pitcher, is limiting those free passes. The stuff is good enough where he can work around it when he issues them, But by going out there and limiting those free passes, it's going to allow him to work deeper into games, put less strain on that bullpen, ultimately, again, put him in that upper echelon of starting pitchers in the game of baseball.
So one thing that you and I were doing during the start was sort of guessing what pitch sequences Dylan Cease was going with. And at one point, you talked about something that happened on an online exchange with somebody about working backwards in counts. And we saw that today from Dylan Cease. I want you to sort of expand on that.
Go back to, I believe it was 2020, the pandemic shortened season, when Dylan Cease did get off to a pretty nice start overall. I think that year he had started maybe 5-1, 6-1. And I looked at some of the peripheral numbers, and there were some things underneath the hood there that were still a little bit concerning to me. And I had a little Twitter exchange with none other than Mr. Steven Stone. And I had asked him, hey, does it maybe make more sense for Cease to utilize the secondary pitches, the breaking stuff, more frequently to get ahead in counts and then use the fastball to wipe guys out? His response to me was, he's 5-1. What more do you want from him? Well, I want him to be better, because the second half of that shortened season, it was a different Dylan Cease, and the numbers weren't as good, which I, for one, definitely was not shocked, because I kind of saw it coming. And if I could figure that out, I think a lot of other people could figure it out too. So this is something we saw from him a year ago, really pitching backwards in baseball parlance right there, utilizing the breaking stuff to get ahead in counts. He did that again here tonight, but he was really varying up his sequencing well. There were a number of instances where even Clemens and Carl Ravitch were talking about him pitching backwards, utilizing the breaking stuff to get ahead. And then he would go in almost on cue, use the fastball to get ahead of guys. So he really was varying a lot of his sequences up today. And that's what you want to see from a starting pitcher. And that's what a dominant starting pitcher is going to have to do against the lineup like the Houston Astros.
Our guy Sale wants to know if Steve Stone called you a jagoff.
He that's hashtag unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed. We'll work to try and confirm that at
reach
some
out to
point.
multiple sources.
We'll reach out and try and confirm that for you, Sal. But I thought that the one thing that Dylan Cease really had working for him today was both the slider and the knuckle curve. I think when you've got both of those pitches working, obviously the slider was at play last year more than the curveball, but I saw that curveball come out today and really fool people. One thing we talked about in the garage early on was, when is that slider going to come out? Because there was a lot of reliance on the curveball early. And then you saw him go to that slider second time through, as we sort of thought that was going to be at play. And he was hitting his spots. It was on the corner almost every single time, very consistent. I thought he looked absolutely wonderful. And if there was a way to set the tone for this season at the top of the rotation, that's how you do it.
Yeah, he really went out there and he was crisp with all of the secondary stuff. What an amazing contrast from the guy that we saw in Arizona during the Cactus League play. And I know a lot of people were, or maybe a lot is too strong. There were some people that were showing a level of concern, given the fact that he did have those struggles in the Cactus League play, particularly against the Kansas City Royals in a couple of outings right there. But he went in there, he was dialed in from the outset today, and you could see that right away. And he was going out there and he was pitching with conviction. And that was another thing that Roger Clemens talked about on this broadcast, is going out there and pitching with conviction every time you have the baseball. Anybody that's been listening to the show knows that that's something I fucking beat into the ground, because as a pitcher, when you have that ball in your hands, you have to throw every single pitch with conviction. Dylan Cease did that tonight.
There we go. You're getting some high praise here from our guy Michael out there. Best analyst on YouTube is NWI. Dude knows the game, and that's why he's on the show. Steve knows the game. He's getting some ringing endorsements here on opening day. What more could you ask for, Steve? Let's move along to the rest of this ball game. There's some frustration, some of the same shit that we saw last year with this White Sox team. Runners in scoring position. A lot of opportunities for the White Sox. A plethora, you would say, of opportunities for the White Sox to strike and sort of put this game out of distance early. We like when our offense scores runs to give our pitchers, especially a guy like Dylan Cease, who's dealing today, some room to work. There was no room to breathe for Dylan Cease. He walked the tightrope, but the runners in scoring position thing still sort of a work in progress, it looks like.
Yeah, it definitely was frustrating to see that. Had opportunities in the 5th inning and the 7th inning to kind of break the game open a little bit. And I think particularly that 7th inning sequence when you had the bases loaded, 1 out, Andrew Vaughn and Eloy coming up in that circumstance, to not get a run home. That's particularly frustrating. And then what happens? Bottom half of the inning, Houston promptly gets their run to get on the board there. That's something that has to get tightened up. Obviously, look, it's the first game of the season here, but we saw this as a trend throughout the entirety of the 2022 season. So this is something that is going to have to improve if this team is going to make amends for what we saw last season and perform the way that a lot of people within this fan base, us included, want to see happen.
Absolutely. I was really frustrated with a couple of things that went on there. Obviously, I mean, this has been a common theme for this team. Even when you go back to 2021 and even the 2020 season, Steve, this core group of players have had trouble driving in runs in opportunistic situations. I really don't expect that to get fixed with any sort of magic wand. You can change the hitting coach, you can tinker with offensive strategy, but a lot of these guys' profiles, at least to me, you sort of look at Luis Robert. He's going to swing at stuff. You look at Tim Anderson. Hey, actually, there was a Tim Anderson walk alert issued today. I love Tim Anderson walks. There was a Tim Anderson walk alert issued today. But you sort of get those profiles of these guys. Yohan Moncada is going to watch something come right over the middle of the plate, 4 strike 3 from time to time. There's going to be these missed opportunities. But I think later on in the game, they sort of got not lucky, but right man, right spot in that sort of situation. But there's going to be levels of frustration throughout this season, at least from what I'm gathering from day one, where we're going to see some of that same type of that's a White Sox baseball.
Yeah, and it is going to be super annoying because just let's be honest with it, on paper, this team doesn't have a tremendous amount of margin for error. So doing some of the little things, getting those big hits with runners in scoring position is going to be paramount for them to continue to put numbers in that left-hand column, which everybody knows. I love when the White Sox put numbers in that left-hand column. I want to see them do more of it.
You do. You really do.
Yeah. So
even though you write articles about how they're only going to win 70,
listen, it's
76, 78 games, somewhere within that range.
Listen, part of, my responsibility as a well-respected and trusted journalist in the field is to write with my head, not with my heart. Because a lot of times what the heart wants just isn't always realistic.
That's a you thing. Steve, they found a way to get this done. And I want to move towards the later innings of this ball game. Let's go to Yohan Moncada, right? You break this play down. I'm still scratching my head.
Okay. Trader Jose makes an error at first base. Ball goes through the 5-hole right there. And Moncada did not get a particularly good jump getting out of the batter's box. Ball kind of kicked around in the corner a little bit. Tucker fields it. Perfect execution on a relay. Look, that's Houston kind of showing an example of what a winning team does. Those are the little things that don't show up in a box score that consistently are going to be the difference between winning and losing baseball games. Houston did those things there. Moncada, if he busts his ass out of the batter's box immediately, instead of just thinking, it's a ground ball to a Brave, I'm just going to, go jog back to the dugout. If he's busting his ass out of the dugout right away, he's standing on third base, and there's not a play there. So that's one of the frustrating things. And look, we've got to be real about this. We're going to see this from Yohan Moncada. It's opening day. We're going to see it. It's going to happen on numerous occasions. There's going to be times where he's going to hit balls that he could extend out another 90 feet to get an extra base for the Sox, and it's not going to happen because he's not running hard out of the box. It's frustrating as all hell. It has been frustrating for 5 years now, at this point, but this is just simply where we're at.
Sort of like when you're watching Luis Roberts swing at sliders in the dirt.
Yes, very similar.
So I just, the point where that takes place, you're sort of feeling like this is going to be a lost game. At least me, right? Everything's sort of not great right there because Houston had just taken the lead, 1-0.
It was in a lot of ways almost like an encapsulation of what we saw all of last season.
Correct. Very correct. And you're just sitting there waiting for, how is this going to unravel further? Right? That's kind of my feeling on it. How is this going to unravel further? And then we get the guy that I said needed to be this year's comeback player. I think there's some sound bites of me talking about it. We got a bat drop today.
We did get a bat drop. Oh, by the way, whose pick to click was that, Anthony?
That was your pick to click.
Oh, yes, bat drop season.
On opening day. Opening day. There it is. You couldn't have.
You love to see it.
You could not have scripted that for Steve, Mr. 78 win guy.
Some might even say borderline cinematic.
It was borderline cinematic. So we've got a tie ball game. And we're going to head to the 9th inning, Steve. Some opportunistic plate approaches.
Yeah. You know, it really was. But the thing that I really want to just kind of focus on here, Andrew Vaughn, you know, the frustration early on in the game of this team not coming through with runners in scoring position. Vaughn was a culprit of that in the 7th inning. And then he goes up there, big spot, 9th inning against the Astros closer, tie game. Boom. It's a missile into that left center field gap, get 2 runs in there. And it just really has to be a tough scene for Jose Abreu to see the guy who took his job drive in 2 runs to give the White Sox the lead.
How perfect is that, though? In terms of cinematic stories, right? How perfect is that? If you're a White Sox fan and you watch Andrew Vaughn come up clutch today, that's a great story.
I feel like
that's a great story.
I feel like that's a spot where our buddy White Sox Sal tweets out the Martin Scorsese meme. This is cinema.
Yeah, it is. It is cinema.
Oh, wait, was that not Italian enough?
Well, you're a White Sox fan. You've had Frank Thomas. You've had Paul Konerko. You've had Jose Abreu. What a way to fucking set the tone if you're Andrew Vaughn right there coming up big against the guy's team that, you know, you just took his job.
Didn't somebody at some point this winter talk about Vaughn needing to step up to continue that lineage of White Sox first baseman?
If you're not reading On Tap Sportsnet yet, you should be. That's all I've got to say about that. Steve, Andrew Vaughn plays hero. And, you know, before we get to the closer that we don't have, as Pedro Grifol had said pregame, I want to talk about the relief appearances from Aaron Bummer and Kendall Graveman as well. I did not like the Aaron Bummer experience today. I don't think anybody out there really did. I did see a couple of tweets, though, on Twitter.com that said he looked good. I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, I mean, to me, we must have been watching different things. I didn't particularly like going to Bummer in that spot right there, even though I know you got Tucker coming up, the lefty thing, but Tucker actually hits left-handed pitching pretty well. He doesn't have these drastic splits depending on handedness of the pitcher there. So it's not really that big of an advantage. And for Bummer, I mean, he had one Cactus League outing.
So he was a rush in,
right?
He was a rush into regular season.
So you're talking about a guy that didn't have a lot of time to kind of get his feet under him, facing hitters, and now all of a sudden on opening day against the defending champs in a scoreless game, you're going to thrust him into that spot. I didn't particularly like that. So this is one of the things I wrote about a couple days ago, as far as Pedro Grifol potentially maybe over-relying too much on data versus on what his eyes are telling him. And I think this was kind of the first instance of that here. So again, this is something that I anticipate seeing. I don't know if regularly is going to be too strong a word, but maybe it won't be infrequent this first maybe 6 weeks or so of the season.
We're going to have to get a larger sample size of Pedro Griffol's bullpen usage, I think, before we can really evaluate this. Not sure, especially coming out of spring training, what kind of throwing plans most of the bullpen's on. We sort of talked about this in our Sox on Tap chat the other day. Last year, you had some weird stipulations at play in terms of who can throw on back-to-back days. That was part of the Kendall Graveman and Joe Kelly contracts. The interview before today's game, Griffol saying we don't have a set closer. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do until Liam Hendriks returns. And we had some very positive news about Liam Hendriks, but I thought that, going to Aaron Bummer could have been more of it was sort of his scheduled day. Especially when you pull Dylan Cease when you did. I think he was at 86 pitches. I thought that Dylan Cease probably could have gone a little bit longer, especially when you look at who was coming up in the order. Would have rather have seen Cease try to get to 7 instead of 6 1/3.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I definitely would have trusted Dylan Cease more than Aaron Bummer, without a question. So again, very interesting decision right there. Not one that I agree with. In real time, I didn't particularly like it. So be something worth monitoring here as we continue to go forward.
Absolutely. Kendall Graveman
came out there,
did exactly his job. Did his job. And then obviously we'll get to the Raylo save. We do have a comment coming in from Kirk Zappa, and we sort of rolled past this. But can we talk about how Oscar Colas got his first major league hit?
Yeah, I know.
This
is a very hot button issue for you, Anthony.
It is.
So take the floor.
This was in the rundown, Kirk, but my phone died and I had the rundown on it. This is absolutely something that I do want to talk about here because I thought that this was total bullshit.
Yeah,
I thought it was absolute bullshit. We're sitting there watching this sort of taxi ride to the ballpark with Pedro Grifol, while Oscar Colas is getting his first major league at bat and gets his first major league hit, and we don't even get to hear about it until the next batter because we've got to finish this. I thought that was absolute horseshit, terrible ESPN broadcasting, but what can you expect in this sort of situation? I think he got robbed. Like if I'm Oscar Colas and I'm going back and watching these highlights, that nobody called his first hit. Yeah. Nobody called his first hit. I think that's total horseshit for Oscar. And hey man, he's done a lot to deserve to be where he is right now.
Maybe he at least has the Len Casper radio call that he can dial up.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to.
I think this is one of the big problems with ESPN's broadcast in general is they try to focus too much on these in-game or pre-game scripted like interviews. They're too much. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like in a lot of ways, to me, it comes across as very forced, scripted WWE type promo stuff. And I'm sorry, I don't need that with my baseball broadcast.
You like it in your WWE?
Yeah. That's the place for it. You know? Baseball, that's not.
I mean, maybe they're just listening to you. You said earlier today that they're not listening to real baseball fans, but maybe they're getting screwed up in their marketing meetings and seeing that too many baseball fans also like wrestling.
That's not the problem. Again, at the end of the day, they're trying to cater to these stupid foosball and basketball fans. It's us
might be a wrestling problem.
Us WWE, we're not the problem. Okay, we're not the problem.
Might be the problem. It's unconfirmed, as they would say in the business. Steve, let's get to Raylo and some accolades for people while we're on the topic of firsts. Ronaldo Lopez enters this ball game tonight, has not closed down a ball game yet in his MLB career, comes in throwing some absolute gas, 100 miles an hour. I think outside of one fastball, I think he hit 99. Everything else was 100 plus, which is what I like to see. I love gas. It looked good for the first 2 hitters he faced.
Yeah, and then for whatever the reason, and they talked about this on the broadcast, he went away from the fastball for some reason, and we saw that with the Yordan Alvarez home run that he hit. He falls behind him a little bit 2-0, and then all of a sudden he decides, hey, I'm going to try to throw a 2-0 slider, and Alvarez hit one that I'm not sure has landed yet. It might still be in orbit.
That was mashed.
But then just even after that, he went away from the fastball a little bit too much when he was pumping it up there. So a little bit of an interesting strategy between him and Grandal. And I think we even saw it at one point. Yaz going out to the mound to talk to him at one point. So they obviously had, I think, some differing opinions on how they were going to try to go about approaching those Astros hitters in that 9th inning there. I would have liked to have seen Raylo just be more aggressive utilizing that fastball there, because it had serious life to it tonight.
It did. And this is something that I've talked about for years, is Reynaldo Lopez out of the starter role in the bullpen can do really special things because he has the stuff. I know our guy Besnick at Sox Insane, go toss him a follow if you want some interesting White Sox takes throughout the season and follow along with him. I think he's probably
don't listen to anything he says about my baby boy Jose Rodriguez.
I think he's probably typing up the White Sox recap over at On Tap Sportsnet tonight, probably as we speak right now, Steve. But he's a big Raylo guy. I know you're a big Raylo guy. I've been a proponent of Reynaldo Lopez in a high leverage role, whether that be multi-inning relief or when you absolutely see him unleash his stuff in a closer role. I'm sort of working through the process of what happened after Yordan Alvarez touched him up. And I think I said to you, it's very obvious the butterflies were in his stomach tonight trying to get through this. I think it's going to be a huge confidence boost for this kid getting the job done tonight. And congratulations to Reynaldo for finishing this out. It's not easy to close down a ball game, let alone do it in the heart of the order against the defending champions.
Yeah.
So there was going to be some problems here. I didn't expect it to be a clean inning. Obviously, tides could have turned had there been a runner on base prior to Yordan taking that at bat. But for all intents and purposes, that's a really good way to, again, set the tone for the back end of the bullpen in 2023.
Yeah, and, a couple things here. So, look, Raylo, obviously, this first opportunity to try to close out a ball game on opening night against the defending champs in a close game situation right there. One of the big, I think, gulfs in the discussion about baseball and how it is viewed in the lens of, your analytics people versus your old school people is, and I firmly disagree with this. Brian Kenny will talk about this all the time, is saying that every out is the same, and they're just not. Outs 25, 6, and 7. Yes, they only count for 1 out apiece, but the fact of the matter is, from a mindset standpoint, they are different. And at the end of the day, not every guy is wired to be able to handle that spot of needing to get those 3 final outs, particularly in a close game.
That's why cocked hats are for closers, Steve.
Yeah, that's why cocked hats are out of the game. But that's neither here nor there.
Alex Calame.
Yeah. Who's he working for?
Every player has longevity, Steve.
Okay. Well, that's not why you called. Point of the story here, before I was so rudely interrupted by Anthony, is that it does matter. Guys in their mindset does matter. They're not robots. Not everybody has the mindset to be able to handle outs 25, 6, and 7. So this is something that Raylo, to get this first experience here in a big situation on opening night with national broadcast, everybody watching, that's a big thing down the road for him. I wrote about this last year when he was in the midst of, kind of establishing himself in the bullpen, is that this is a guy that I think could be a future closer in the making. So to kind of see this today, has a little bit of adversity. He's able to fight through that and ultimately get the job done. that could go a long way for him in the future, this first 6 weeks of the season or so, as they are ultimately trying to sort out what's going to happen at the back end of this bullpen.
So I'll ask you a question with that said. Obviously, Liam Hendriks is going to make his way back to this ball club. Pedro Grifol has said this team does not have a closer. Do you think when Grifol is speaking, he is speaking in the current term because he did not state this team does not have a closer right now until Liam Hendriks is back? Or do you think that's going to be a full season thing? Can you see Pedro Grifol using Liam Hendriks in the 6th or 7th and even going to Graveman or Reynaldo Lopez in the 9th based on matchups? And how do you feel about that?
I don't think we know how he's going to handle it ultimately. I know Liam talked about this when he signed here, is that he likes the flexibility of being able to come in different spots and coming in different high leverage situations, whether that is the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. So that actually is something that maybe he really does want to do. But again, we're not really going to know how Pedro Grifol is going to handle that until we're in that situation. We don't know when that's going to be. Like you saw earlier, we got some really positive news about Liam yesterday and about, his potential availability maybe around late May, early June, which would be great. Not only from his standpoint as he's dealing with the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but then also for the team aspect of it here. So I'm going to reserve judgment on it until we are in that situation there. As far as, from a preference standpoint, I think a lot of it's just really going to depend on matchups for me. I think if you're in a spot where, say you're facing the Yankees and you have to deal with Judge, Stanton, and the rest of their lineup there in maybe like a 7th or 8th inning spot, I wouldn't hate the idea of potentially using Liam Hendriks in that particular scenario right there, but it's just going to kind of be a feel thing for it.
Okay. Fair enough. I was just curious. I needed some outside sounding board on it. And if anybody who's listening has their thoughts, feel free to throw them out there as well. Steve, the Sox wind up victorious here on the back of Andrew Vaughn, Yasmani Grandal, Dylan Cease, and Reynaldo Lopez closing it down. First win for your boy, Pedro Grifol. Steve is a self-proclaimed Pedro Grifol stan.
Self-proclaimed by Anthony. I mean,
it's been hashtag confirmed by his display on twitter.com. You can go and read those tweets for yourself.
Listen,
why don't you just congratulate your boy here?
Listen,
congratulate your boy.
The facts are the facts. They haven't had a manager set the tone and win on opening day in a couple years now. At this point, I mean,
those are facts.
Those are hashtag facts only, right there.
Exactly.
I'm
giving you the stage.
So we got to keep that in mind right here. Look, I said for a good portion of the winter, Pedro Grifol was saying all the right things in media availability, in print. We'll see what happens in practice. I didn't like the Aaron Bummer decision here today. So again, learning curve for him. We'll see what happens going forward at this point, but you can't argue that he went out there and hashtag set the tone.
Left-hand column, as you said, left-hand column is where you like them. Unfortunately, you may have shortchanged them, at least on pace right now.
I was very upfront. Everybody who's watching and listening right now, if you haven't read it, go read it. I said, I want to be wrong. I'm hoping to be wrong. I want nothing more than for you and Besnick and anybody listening to clip pieces of that little column right there and drag me for it if this team wins the division. I want it. I need it. Give it to me. I'm here for it.
Some would say that's called fence sitting, but I digress.
It's not fence sitting.
Well, okay, so I would just argue here, Steve. We're sitting here having a friendly conversation. Why can't we just own our prediction?
I'm owning it. I'm saying I don't want the prediction to be right, though.
I know you don't want the prediction.
You can predict something because you think that's what's going to happen, but still not want it.
Does this guy
happen.
think it's over? Does he want it to be over?
I don't want it to be over because
we'll find out.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm a fucking joy to be around when the Sox are playing well. Remember how much fun I was the first half of 2021?
So I just got to ask you, are you setting the bar low so that you hope they fly over it?
You know,
under promise, over deliver.
You know, Vince Vaughn's character in Dodgeball once said that if you set a goal, you might not achieve it. Therefore, if you don't, you can't be disappointed.
It's great.
Maybe.
Great line.
Maybe.
Great line. Absolutely great line. Steve, we're just about out of time here, and we're going a little bit longer because it's opening day. And we're excited to talk about White Sox baseball.
Because this is the first time we've been able to do this since October.
It feels great to be back.
We are hashtag back.
It feels great to be back. Couple of notes before we head into a preview of tomorrow's ball game. If you didn't catch the season preview show, we sort of outlined, we'll be here with you Monday through Thursday for post games throughout the season. We will be taking brief hiatuses for Fridays and Saturdays. And then we'll be back on Sundays this year with the Sunday Fun Day show. We're going to try and bring on some guests for these Sunday shows. We're going to have a couple of guests come on and do post games with us throughout the year. Really excited about that. And also, we will be doing a tailgate on Monday, weather permitting. Well, not even weather permitting. We'll probably be out there either way. There is some rain in the forecast, but that forecast has changed a couple of times. Look for the On Tap Sportsnet flag out in Lot B. We'll be out there. I think there's going to be some Jello shots, Steve. There's going to be all sorts of fun and beer. And I heard Buzz is actually going to return to 35th and Shields. I heard from sources today. This is the first time he's going to be back since opening day last year.
Are you saying hashtag multiple sauces?
Multiple sauces have told me that Buzz on Tap will be in Lot B on Monday.
Bradley making the hashtag return.
The return. I got a fax this morning that said
the fax machine was on.
He's coming back. Wow. You heard it here first.
That changes things, folks. If you are going on Monday, you need to find your way over to Lot B. The party's going to get started early. And if Bradley Squires is there, then that's where you need to be.
Well, Steve, I heard it was going to be sort of potentially raining during the tailgate. I know this guy has done at least one mudslide, but now they have some AstroTurf around home plate. Can we get him sliding into home plate?
That could be, he's really going to have his PPE on.
Yes.
And make sure that he is prepared for the occasion. So, Bradley, if you are listening, and why wouldn't you be right now? You got to come prepared. If you're going to reenact that,
I think we need him to set the tone into home plate.
It has to be done.
I think so.
It has to be.
Somebody's got to bring a hefty bag though, because I'm pretty sure that's what he was wearing in the first video.
Yeah. We're gonna need the hefty bag. Might need to throw some grease on there just for traction purposes.
Yes.
So again, we're safety conscious here at Sox on Tap.
A slide into home plate from Buzz. We'll see if we can make it happen, but we'll be out there. I can't wait, Steve. I can't wait past the ballpark. As I said, I went downtown today, past the ballpark. I was looking out there at Lot B and just thinking about how Monday's going to go down, and it just sort of brought joy to me to be that close to being back at the ballpark.
It's going to be amazing. I mean, the home opener just really gets my nads pumping. I talk about this all the time. It's my favorite day of the year. It's like Christmas, Thanksgiving, the 4th of July, and Pulaski Day all rolled into one, multiplied by 100.
And for Patrick Comiskey and I, we would say it's sort of like, somewhere between the 4th of July and St. Patrick's Day and all the other good holidays.
St. Patrick's. Yeah, let's see. Did he do anything to help establish this country? No, because he's a bitch.
Oh, my goodness. Here we are. And this is Sox on Tap. Steve, let's get into what's on tap next for the White Sox. We've got a ball game tomorrow, 7:10. Why don't you break down the starting pitching matchup? and then we'll give some predictions before we get out of here.
Tomorrow, the big bastard, Lance Lynn, guts and nuts. It's going to be that kind of day, going up against Christian Javier for the Astros. Houston's a team that has given the big bastard a lot of problems in the last couple of years. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens this time around, since last August, when Lance started to really incorporate utilizing the slider more frequently, which I may or may not have touched on that at ontapsportsnet.com. You can go read it in the archives. It'll be fascinating to see what his game plan and what his approach is, because this Houston team is a team that really feasts on fastballs. And with Lance's previous approach of being about 90% fastball dependent, it just simply wasn't a good matchup. We saw that during game 1 of the 2021 ALDS. So how he goes out there and approaches and tries to attack these hitters is something I'm going to be particularly dialed in on, to tell you the truth. So definitely be interesting with that. Christian Javier, guy, has electric stuff for the Astros, but can have bouts of wildness within the strike zone and can lose that strike zone at times, getting himself into trouble with walks. So if the Sox hitters can go up there, exhibit some patience, get themselves into some quality hitters counts, they'll be better positioned to do some damage tomorrow. And I think we're probably going to see Oscar Colas make his first career major league start tomorrow, would be my assumption.
I would think so as well, Steve. I sort of worry on the same Lance Lynn notes as you do, but I think he's done this a couple of times in his White Sox career that we've watched, where he will go after a hitter in the middle of the order with a fastball that doesn't have the same velocity as a guy like Dylan Cease. He winds up getting burned for it. So I hope that the approach tomorrow is to be a little bit more reserved around the middle of the order. I expect a higher scoring ball game than we saw today. White Sox bats are going to have to come out and do some damage early, because I think Lance Lynn, even despite him being your number 2 guy, is sort of vulnerable to an offense like Houston. You can't be going after Yordan Alvarez and Jose Abreu in the middle of the order. I think if Jose Abreu is going to probably do some damage during the series, Lance Lynn sort of seems like the most vulnerable guy to do it against. Pitch around him, play to contact, but weak contact if you can, if you're Lance Lynn. And, give me 5 innings, 6 innings, and keep this thing close. But I think it's going to be a different style of ball game than you watched today. You're going to need the bats to show up early.
Yeah, definitely going to need that. And listen, I know they had what did they have today? Like 10 total hits in this game?
They were racking up the hits.
They were stringing the hits together. Listen, I'll take fewer hits. Do that ball in the air over that fencing thing. They did it once today. Deploy the multi-home run strategy.
There you go. You got a pick to click for tomorrow?
I do have a pick to click for tomorrow. I think tomorrow against Christian Javier, we're going to get our first R-roll of 2023 with Luis Robert. We're going.
Save the R-roll.
We're going with the baby one.
Save the R-roll.
That's just a preview. Just a preview.
Save the R-roll. Steve, I'm gonna go with I want to go with Yasmani Grandal. I'm not sure he's gonna be in the lineup, so I'm gonna take this elsewhere and go to Mr. Tim Anderson for tomorrow. I think that the walk alert really
inspired.
It was very inspiring to me. I think he's seeing the ball well. He played in some high intensity games with Team USA. I think he's got that same sort of flow here in Houston. There were some walks in the WBC. Saw a walk today. I want to see him put the power on display tomorrow.
Yeah, we saw him get a double here today in this game. Listen, if he happens to put one into those Crawford boxes or onto those railroad tracks up there, I'm all for
it. You got called out. First time.
I did.
Forget the junior.
I did. This is going to be a little bit of a learning experience for all of us here.
It's not spring training anymore, though. Like you should have had the tone set.
Well, you know, listen, Pedro Gaffol made a questionable decision going to Aaron Bummer here. First game of the season, you know, you get some jitters in there. Raylo had some jitters. Listen, it's opening day for us too on the postgame show. I had some jitters going here. Made one mistake in this. I think overall pretty quality performance, but I got to tighten that up. I will admit that. I'm sorry. I feel like I hurt the team in that particular spot, but I'm going to make up for it going forward.
You can't forget the junior. You were telling me about how Grandstand has only junior.
Yeah. Well, they don't.
Articles of clothing
They
out
don't
now.
even have. There is no Luis Robert merchandise in that store because when he added the junior to his name, they had to pull everything. So you can't find a Luis Robert jersey at Grandstand. You can make a custom jersey.
How much are the NFTs of Luis Robert worth now?
I mean,
Do you think they went up in value?
Listen, the NFT business, I mean, it's booming.
Booming. If you've got your hands on a Luis Robert NFT trading card, save that.
You probably don't need to work anymore. If we're being honest with ourselves.
Save that. Absolutely save that. Steve, first post-game show, it felt great to be here. It felt great to drink victory beers. In fact, I've got more victory beers to drink, but we're about to close this thing down. We've given our picks as a click for tomorrow. We will actually be back. I know I said that the post-game show will be running Monday through Thursday, but it's opening weekend.
Yeah.
Opening weekend here. We're excited to talk baseball. We're going to be on tomorrow night. Steve, I know Johnny's going to be back in the fold. I might make an appearance. We'll see what happens, but you'll be back on with Mr. Jonathan Donovan.
Hashtag confirm. Me and Jonathan, we're gonna give this thing a spin tomorrow, and we're gonna see if we can continue to build some positive momentum here, because we are, if nothing else, looking to hashtag set the tone for the season.
Hey, winning streaks are cool and tough, and you got to get through 2 before you get to 3.
That's confirmed.
You got to get to 2 before you get to 3, Steve. All I've got to say before we close this down, follow us on the YouTube. Thank you to everybody who came into the show and participated in the comment section on the YouTube. We can't see comments on Twitter, so make sure you are in the YouTube following along all year with us here at Sox on Tap. Steve, it was great. It was a great day. Opening day, Sox win, victory beers. You beat the defending champions. I think we can both sleep happy.
I know I am going to sleep very well. My body needs it. It's on the verge of shutdown mode here. These cross-country travels over the last few weeks are taking a toll on me here. But listen, it's opening day. You get the adrenaline flowing. I'm running on pure adrenaline right now. So there's going to be a crash period that's going to happen in here. But I knew I had to bring it today. I had to hashtag set the tone. And so I committed to this thing today. And hey, I think we delivered.
What a valiant effort by you. And
I am, if nothing else, a man of the people.
Everybody who's on here, I want you to go out on Twitter and tag Steve and tell him how great he did today, making it from California all the way back to On Tap HQ to watch opening day and get on this post game. Go give him a round of applause, a pat on the back, or just,
please clap,
or just tell him that it's going to be over for him as soon as he gets back to Indiana. You got another state to travel before you hit the head.
3 states in one day.
3 states in one day for you, man. That's an accomplishment. You should be proud of that.
You know that is something that is going to be kind of a big thing for me. One of my all-time attributes or favorite moments in my baseball fandom was back in 2009 when I saw the Sox play the Cincinnati Reds, which I'm going back here in a few weeks when the Sox go down there. I was able to successfully drink in 3 states in one night.
You might be able to do that tonight.
I'm going to have to stop at the alcohol store and get something then.
I might be able to send you a care package.
Well, if I have to take one home with me and do it, I'll do it.
There you go. Well, Steve, happy opening day. Great to do this show with you. Thank you to everybody who tuned in here at Sox on Tap. And a special thank you to everybody who tuned in on the YouTube and threw a comment in there. Steve, let's close this down how we always do. Man, the victory beers just taste absolutely fantastic. Steve,